for downloading the ChasingCinema.com podcast. I hope you hit that subscribe button on iTunes. That way, each week, every Sunday when our new episodes come out, it goes straight to your iTunes, straight to your iPad, your iPod, your iPhone, or any devices that you're using to listen to the podcast on your way to work, at school. Maybe instead of listening to your teacher's lectures, you're listening to us. Maybe at the office. Maybe you're just sitting on the computer. Wherever you may be listening to us, I appreciate you downloading our episode and listening to us. If you are a first-time listener, let me quickly introduce myself. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jacob Toronto, and I am joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louis Horizolo.
And what we do here is talk about the world of motion pictures. Today, on today's episode, me and Louis are going to be talking about what we've been watching lately, a little bit of catching up, a little bit of movie news, but we are going to pretty much be focusing on Jupiter Ascending, the new film from the Wachowski brothers, or siblings, that brought us The Matrix and Cloud Atlas. And finally, SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. So we have three majorly different movies to go over today. But before we get into that, Louis, what have you been doing lately? You were not with us last week.
No.
And this week I'll be out of town, so we're recording this fairly early. But Louis, what have you been doing? Have you been watching any movies or any television shows?
Let's see. I've been, of course, busy with school, which is not fun, as many people can relate to. But
many of our Twitter followers have tweeted out that they think you should just quit school altogether.
I have not seen that on Twitter. I think you're lying.
Because
I think they want Josh Bowe to just replace me, which I definitely agree with. Josh Bowe does an amazing job each time he's here. He does an amazing job in his work. I think he should just take over because obviously I'm way out of my league.
Josh Bell is always a guest. Last week he was he was always a great guest. Last week he was a guest replacing Louis, and we talked about a bunch of movies from Beyond the Mat to a lot of the movies that are nominated to a few other films. Great podcast. He's always a pleasure. I'm sure I'll be back sooner than later. But Louis, what have you been watching?
They want me to stay in school. They want me to stay in school so I could get off the podcast. Come on, let's be honest. But anyways, watching wise, I've been limited. Haven't been watching many movies, but TV shows, because it's on TV naturally, it's easier for me to just pop that on. So I know we talked about it last week. I've been watching the last season of Parks and Rec, and they've done a great job so far in this final season. I've been watching the new It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is always funny for me. But I did start a new TV show, Arrested Development. Now, I know this show is pretty old, starting back in 2002, 2003, so I'm kind of late to the party. It just had a new season in 2013, thanks to Netflix. It got picked up after it got canceled by Fog, and that show is just brilliant. I am so upset at myself that I have not started watching that show sooner, and I will go this far and say it's definitely one of the best sitcoms of the 2000s. And if I would even go farther, it could be one of the greatest sitcoms of all time. It's just a brilliant show.
How far are you into the show?
There's only 4 seasons. I'm currently in season 3.
Wow.
It goes down so easy. It's so funny. The characters are great. Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, Jeffrey Tambor, Portia de Rose. There's so many. This is a great, and David Cross. You're a big fan of David Cross, and he's in it, and he's hilarious.
Fan of David Cross, but I have watched maybe an episode or two. Maybe it was just one of those nights where I was like, "Let me explore," and I didn't end up finishing it. I don't know if it just wasn't the time or the moment. I honestly don't remember much of it, but I've heard a lot of great things about the show. That's all I've heard. So, I mean, for you to say one of the greatest maybe sitcoms ever, it's pretty heavy.
It really is. It's definitely with the 2000s, and it's just so funny, and the characters are great, and there's so much going on. And because it came out in 2002 or 2003, we have to remember it's filmed like it's filmed like a documentary, single hand camera, but it's not like The Office where they're aware of the documentary per se. But this came out in the early 2000s, it set a way for TV shows to go in this route, for The Office, American Edition, for Parks and Rec, even 30 Rock with a single-handed personal camera style for sitcoms. It kind of paved the way for those type of shows, and it's just another fun, crazy, dysfunctional family.
So, in comparison to like Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Office, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, is it in the same league as these shows? Because personally, I like some of the shows you love. I love some of the shows you love, and then I hate some of the shows you love. Well, not hate. Hate's a strong word.
Well, I still think you didn't give It's Always Sunny a chance. It's Always Sunny. Like I again, we might be going off topic here, but It's Always Sunny is like Seinfeld on steroids. It definitely is. It takes the whole approach of these group of close friends who are imbeciles, who are degenerates, who are terrible people at the heart of it. And if you can remember Seinfeld's season finale, all of them did end up in jail for the obvious, blunders along the way. But Sunny has taken that and they say, okay, let's make them really deprived. Let's make them really narcissistic, crazy. And that's what they did. And they've done a great job. But yeah, absolutely. I would definitely place Arrested Development in that league.
So
I still think Seinfeld is the greatest sitcom
I agree.
of all time. I think that show's just brilliant and perfect. No one could touch it. And by default, I think Curb Your Enthusiasm is pretty close to perfection too, because it's from the mind of Larry David, and he does no wrong in my book. And Curb is another brilliant show. But Arrested Development is now become in that elusive, Mount Rushmore of TV shows or, sitcoms.
What is Arrested Development about?
Pretty much Arrested Development follows the Bluth family. And at the top of the Bluth family is the father, played by Jeffrey Tambor. George Sr. is his character's name. And he runs this real estate housing building homes type company, and I don't want to call him an imbecile, but he does a lot of stupid, illegal business activity in his life, and he gets caught and he has to go to jail. So to save the company has to be his son, played by Jason Bateman, George Jr., and he's the only good person in the family. The sister, Lindsay, Ronette's the brother, Buster. They're all very, very selfish, insecure people who are lazy in their lives and want money, and the company pays them off. The father's been paying them off on the payroll, and they've done nothing for the company. And they expect that lifestyle to continue, even though the company's losing money, is battling so many different lawyers and the government and cops. And George, Jason Bateman character, has to navigate through all this mayhem and try to get his family situated. He has a son, George Michael, played by Michael Cera, a very young Michael Cera, and he tries to live a normal life, a good life, but he's just surrounded by this idiotic family that he too becomes somewhat idiotic, and it's just adventures.
Who's the star of the show?
It's definitely an ensemble cast, but it definitely focuses on Jason Bateman.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily like the lead, but who steals the show?
Every given day, there could be someone that shines in the episode. Jason Bateman's great. There's moments where Michael Cera is so funny and so innocent. You could see, oh my God, this kid's going to be big. And, this is before Superbad, Youth and Revolt, all of that. It's hard. It's really like Seinfeld, because who's a star? Obviously, you could think Seinfeld. But, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is amazing. She could be the star in any given episode, so is Jason Alexander. But I think a constant MVP of the show is Will Arnett. He is just too funny.
I'll have to check that one out. Friends is also available on Netflix.
Yeah, you can keep Friends.
That's another show I want to track down and watch. I don't think you've given Friends really a chance, have you?
I can't say I've seen episode 1 to episode 100 in order.
Oh, wow.
But I definitely seen 80 to 90% of that show, and it's good. Don't get me wrong; it's really good, but I think it's a tad bit overrated and pales in comparison to other shows.
Ooh, now what were you going to say?
No.
Before I said that it was going to be on Netflix, you're watching it on Netflix. Arrested Development.
Yes.
Okay.
And the creative plan, they're planning a 5th season and even a movie of Arrested Development. So hopefully there's more, because I've been watching with Mom and Pop, and they love it too. So when you get 3 different people who definitely have different tastes to sit down and enjoy a show that much together, the show's rocking. And Ron Howard is an executive producer, and he narrates the show. So, good old Richie Cunningham.
Yeah, I'll have to check that show out eventually and kind of sit down and watch it. We and Samantha still been on the venture to watch Monk. The whole entire show. We're on season 3 now. Sharona has exited the show.
Spoiler alert!
That's not what she's gone. Like I don't remember it being that early, but she was pretty early. I haven't usually, and like I've mentioned before, January and February months are like us kind of it feels like we're getting back from vacation, if that makes sense. We work really, really hard in December, and then January and February are just kind of like a breather period before we hit back in the summer blockbusters and all that stuff. So I haven't been cramming as much as I should. Usually I do try to watch 3 or 4 movies a week. Have not been hitting that quota as of, well, actually I did hit 3 this week. So that's not necessarily true. But not as much as I would like to watch them at home as much as the theater. I have a lot of movies that I absolutely love and always want to revisit. And there are films that, even on the podcast or in a conversation, I'll say, man, I really need to revisit that. And unfortunately, I don't get to do it as often as I'd like to. Just because of time and, and there's so many in the shows, shows get in the way of watching movies. And that's why I try not to commit myself to a show. But Samantha is absolutely loving Monk, and I love Monk. And and I haven't watched that show since it ended, which I believe was in like 2008. And it was time for a revisit. I will say I have that is not new, and that is the SpongeBob movie from 2004. However, I'm going to just try to hold that off and talk about that more when we talk about the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. Louis?
Yes.
Is there any movie news? What's going on in the world of movie news? The Super Bowl recently happened. Me and Josh did not get to talk about it because it was recorded before Sunday, because of everyone having Super Bowl arrangements and parties and things to go to. There were some major TV spots at the Super Bowl. So before we get into movie news, if there is any, we could talk about some of these spots. Louis, you did watch the Super Bowl. Did you see pretty much the majority of the TV spots that were advertised?
Absolutely. I think 2 were definitely big, in my opinion. First one being the new Jurassic Park film.
Okay, yes.
I know we discussed the first trailer, and we kind of had mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I thought the TV spot was excellent. I think they improved so much from the first trailer, kept the best parts of the first trailer, and added some new footage, some new moments of the film, and they looked really, really strong.
I will say that it did look better than the first trailer, but that first kind of trailer still is kind of off-putting to me. So it still kind of left that taste in my mouth where, you could try, a type of food somewhere and you might not like it. And then somewhere else it tastes a little bit better, but it still kind of has that whole thought process behind it. That's how I kind of feel, if that made any sense. You might like most of my analogies do. But I will say it was an improvement.
Yeah, I definitely approved of it. And I think the biggest spot of the night and the most anxious film of the year, one of them at least, is Tomorrowland. And
and that was the one that I actually missed. And
no,
I'm glad, because I kind of don't want to see a trailer for Tomorrowland. I think this is going to be one that I'm going to kind of step back from. But I actually was out of the room at the time of Tomorrowland, and it was by total accident. I mean, I saw it on YouTube and not watched it, but I saw that it was available, and everyone was talking about it. I said, I'm just gonna, maybe I'll try to wait this one out. How was the trailer for Tomorrowland?
Really good. Again, it's it wasn't too long, but it looked like it sounded. It was, I don't know. I messed up that line. Because there's so much mystery regarding the film, and it's kept under such tight secrecy that a lot of people don't know what the film is going to be about. There's, the plot details that they send out even could be misleading. But it looked like a great film. It had all the makings of a sci-fi hit, and Clooney, Hugh Laurie, and the cast looks great. The special feature looks amazing. It looks like it's going to be like the film of the summer from the spot.
I am excited. I've heard great things, but again, it's one that Lou's gonna have to talk about because I'm going to try to avoid it as much as I can. Now, amongst these two trailers or TV spots, if you will, also was Furious 7, which also got really, really over at the party that I was at. People were very, very excited for. What did you think about this trailer?
It looked like the last 3-4 trailers for Fast and the Furious. That's what my anticipation was. I wasn't too impressed, but I did like when The Rock had the big gun, the big machine gun. He looked amazing, and seeing Jason Statham is pretty cool. But other than that, I'm sure, I had great fun with the sixth one. I thought there was nothing wrong with that per se. It was a fun, enjoyable movie, and hopefully the 7th edition could continue on with that. But, I wasn't, oh my God, I can't wait like I was with Jurassic Park and Tomorrowland.
Also, as far as I agree with Louis, it kind of looks like everything else. Nothing too special. I don't want to say that I'm not excited, but I'm not as excited as the rest of the world. I want to say it would be a fair statement. I think that I am just like, okay, cool. Maybe this one will be good because it has kind of gone in a very slope-like. What's the word I'm looking for here? It's kind of gone in a slope as far as how good the films have been. We started off with 1, which I'm actually not a big fan of, but a lot of people were. 2 and 3 weren't as praised by most people or critics. Neither was 4, actually. Or maybe 4 was kind of because that's when the gang kind of quote-unquote reunited. But 5 and 6 were pretty positively reviewed by fans and critics. I didn't mind 5 and 6 as much as I mind the other films. Though, again, I am not a huge fan of any film from the Fast and the Furious films. Not saying that I think they're bad. They're just not super entertaining to me. They haven't really ever kind of become... Like, I know people... they love that group and they've kind of really connected to those characters. Obviously we saw the outpour of love and support from the Fast and Furious fans at the tragic death of Paul Walker. But to me, those characters have never really kind of become a part of my movie watching family or someone or people that I've actually connected to and really are continuously want to see. But nonetheless, I think that it will be kind of interesting, and it's going to be a very interesting type of feel watching that movie, kind of similar to watching Night at the Museum after Robin Williams' passing. It did have an odd vibe watching him, and as it usually does watching someone that has passed away. Also, amongst Furious 7, we had Ted 2, the TV spot, which follows Ted and Mark Wahlberg going to Tom Brady's home and getting thrown as a perfect spiral. Lee, what did you think of Ted? And have you watched the major trailer for Ted 2? What are you thinking about that film?
I have not seen the extended trailer of Ted 2. I knew it was released, but I had no interest in going to seek it out myself. We both didn't like Ted. And so I have no real anticipation for Ted 2, but I might say that the Ted 2 spot during Super Bowl was brilliant.
It was just fitting.
I thought that was so perfect, and being a football fan and dealing with Tom Brady's praise, especially leading to the Super Bowl or non-praise, seeing that was just perfect. Having Brady participate in that is amazing, and that's probably going to be the funniest part in the whole film. So that was my opinion on that.
So if you've not seen the trailer, I watched it because my brothers were constantly telling me, "Oh, you gotta watch it, it's so funny." Because some of my brothers were with us when we saw the film, which I always, like Louis said, was not a huge fan of. But this film is basically Ted's decision to become a father, to become a parent, and at first they ask Mark Wahlberg for his artificial insemination, because obviously Ted cannot reproduce. And then it comes down to the point where the movie looks like it takes a courtroom turn as in order to have children, Ted needs to prove that he is I don't know if human was the word, but he basically needs to defend his rights in order to have a child. And it looks like it's going to be very much of a courtroom drama. So, I wasn't a fan of Ted 2. I wanted to like Ted 2. The only thing I did like about Ted 2 is Giovanni Ribisi. But I've, again, kind of going in with really low expectations, and I might be surprised, but I don't know. I mean, there's a great cast in this film. I really like Mark Wahlberg, but he's just been very frustrating to me as of late, just because he is doing a lot of films that I wish he would do a lot more. If that makes sense. I think he could do a lot. He could deliver a lot better performances and do a lot better films, but he chooses to do things like Transformers and Ted. And, if that's his choice, so be it. I cannot judge him for that. However, as an actor, I could say, his acting ability is really lacking in these films. And obviously so, because they're not very strong movies. And I know that he has, expressed interest in another Transformers film, which is the path that he wants to take, so be it. But yeah, not really, really excited for that at all.
Agreed.
Also, amongst those, which one am I forgetting?
Well, there was 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, which that is a screening, I'm going to be honest with, that I'm dreading. And I don't mean that I'm dreading in the sense that, oh no, it's that movie. It's just the screening that I'm dreading of being, I am really interested in seeing how the screening audience is and how anxious they are. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of women screaming at the screen. So I'm just kind of interested to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Not 50 Shades of Grey, but Terminator Genesis had a TV spot, a trailer that also I think we both expressed very mixed reviews on. What did you think about the Terminator Genesis TV spot?
I guess you could say mixed emotions. I thought some of it looks interesting and cool, and I am a fan of the Terminator series, and seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger back as the Terminator is bittersweet. It's kind of fun. He's still the Governator. At the same time, it's kind of like, it's like seeing Sylvester Stallone play Rambo for the 6th, 7th, 8th time. It's how much can we take? It's one of those movies that could be surprisingly, oh, you know what? Not bad. They did a good job reviving the series, or it's going to be like a total disaster, And I think the trailer kind of sums that up.
I think you're right. I mean, again, this is a movie that I'm like, I'm not sure. Is it what really needs to be made? Do we need another film? I know Arnold is kind of trying to resurrect his career and do more. But is it what the audience wants? Is it what we want? Probably not so much. But I might be in the minority. I've heard some people who are really avid fans really kind of say, no, this is going to be the movie that kind of fixes everything. Mm-hmm. I don't know about all that. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, it relies on how they treat the story and the plot, because it deals with time travel and going back before the first movie, during the first movie, and all of that. So if they can handle that with great care and knock it out of the park, then I think we might have a hit on our hands. But if this time travel movie turns out to be like a project, what's that project? The
Almanac.
Movie. Thank you. Then it's going to be trouble.
Yeah, and I agree. I think, and especially with the last two films, already kind of really creating other timelines and already being somewhat confusing. that it necessarily does not help the movie. But if they go, it seems like they're saying, forget those other two films. We're going to go back to 1 and 2 and kind of live in that glory. However, there is that question. If Cameron's not attached, the movies have not worked. So will that kind of continue?
But I think he did support this one at a Q&A last year. They were talking about the aspect of the time travel, and he talked to the director about it, and he does support and the belief, the science behind it. So that's interesting.
Okay, that's very possible. And if he does, that's fine. But I've also heard, that doesn't necessarily mean anything either. If he approves of it, it's much different when it's told from someone's perspective. But again, it's a film that I will be waiting for. Now, just to quickly, as we've already kind of gone into the half-hour mark of our show, immediately we have 3 films to talk about, which we'll spend a decent amount of time talking about. The one thing I want to talk about is a casting rumor here. It seems like now that Disney has purchased Lucasfilms, there is talks of a possible remake of the Indiana Jones films. Now, one of the most common things I get from people who find out that I'm a critic and what I do and what we do is, why do they remake so much stuff? How come there's no original ideas? And why are they always rebooting stuff? I.e., Fantastic Four, which also had a Super Bowl spot, did it not?
I don't. It could have. Maybe I missed it.
I watched on YouTube. Did you see it yet? Have you seen anything from it yet?
I've read about what happens in it, but I did not see it.
Looks okay. Looked better than expected, but that's all I'll say about that. And I explained to them the usual things which I've explained on this podcast before. It's just they're just harder to find the original stuff, the movies that kind of go into a different place and aren't so much studio mainstreamed, that's trying to make big business, i.e. Ghostbusters, which I'm excited for because the cast seems great. It's all women. They're going in a way different direction. However, Louis, have you heard who they want to play Indiana Jones?
I have.
And who is that person?
That is the very popular Chris Pratt.
The lead from Guardians of the Galaxy and the upcoming Jurassic World. What do you think about that? What are your opinions? Do you feel that this is a character that they shouldn't touch? Do you feel, and this is all rumored, do you feel that this is a great casting choice? What are your kind of thoughts when you hear that they're going to be redoing Indiana Jones and that will be our new Indy?
I've never been a big Indiana fan.
Yeah.
So I don't have this personal deep connection with Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. When I think of Ford, I think of Han Solo. So if they were recasting Han Solo, I might be more cynical. However, I'm a big fan of Chris Pratt. I love his work on Parks and Rec. And I honestly thought he did a fine job of Guardians of the Galaxy. I think he has a lot of charisma, a lot of talent in him. And I think that I wouldn't mind him taking on Indiana Jones. And granted, we probably don't need another Indiana Jones, especially after the last one with Shia LaBeouf. Yeah. That was just god-awful. But if this is a reboot, maybe they could add a new spin to it and make it exciting again. And he is, one of the hot actors of today, and I think he deserves a chance of leading another franchise, But that's just me. I just like him personally.
I like him as well, but that's kind of what I was thinking about is, is that too much? I mean, if Chris Pratt is going to be leading the Guardians of the Galaxy and going into the whole Marvel universe, he assumingly will be the driving force in Jurassic World, which might be also a franchise to come, multiple sequels, depending on how the first one does. We already know there will be another Guardians of the Galaxy film. Is that not too much for this man who kind of just really was an oddball choice at first and then really ended up communicating well with audiences, and now they're just going to put him in all these roles? Like, is that not too much? Not saying he doesn't have the acting ability to handle it all, but it kind of gets to a point where one man is dominating the biggest franchises that we might be watching all the time. Do you think that might be a run into a problem? Do you think Chris Pratt is the new hot movie star, or what about that?
See, I think that's difficult to say, because granted, he's going to get a lot of exposure, and some people could get sick of him, being in the Guardians, and if Jurassic Park picks up and if they make other sequels of that, he's going to be in that as well.
Ideally,
ideally. But then again, maybe Jurassic Park is a bomb, and so that gets dropped. So that's just one film. And, here's his chance for Indiana Jones, and that's good. So it'd just be Guardians, Indiana Jones, and that's not too bad. Jennifer Lawrence is doing Hunger Games and the X-Men, and she's doing great. And I'm sure we could look at many other actors who have been, spread out with their film choices, especially in the blockbusters. I think he has a chance to do it because he is very personable. People like him. And, he was in Zero Dark 30 and Moneyball, albeit very small parts, but he was really good, very effective in those films. So he definitely has a talent for it. So if Disney wants to go this way and they really have their eyes on Chris Pratt, I think more power to them.
All right, and we want to hear what you think. Make sure to Make sure to tweet us at Chasing Cinema. Don't text me on my house phone to tell me what you think about Chris Pratt.
That'd be me.
Just getting texts all night. Chris Pratt. No, he's never wear too thin. Best movie star ever. Chris Pratt sucks. Leave me alone.
2:00 in the morning.
Tweet us at Chasing Cinema, or you could always email us at jake@chasingcinema.com or louis@chasingcinema.com, or feel free to write on our Facebook page as well, facebook.com/chasingcinema. Also, these podcasts, if you do not listen on iTunes or Podbean, you could always listen to it on YouTube, and you could always leave comments in the YouTube section as well. Moving on, let's start off with one that I feel like I have a lot to say about, but I have a feeling my review will wrap up pretty quickly.
Go for
it. Can you guess which one it is?
I have no clue.
The first film we're going to talk about is the new sci-fi fantasy action film, Jupiter Ascending, from the Wachowski brothers. Louis saw Cloud Atlas last year or 2 years ago, whatever it may be. I did not see the film, have not seen the film yet. Louis, how did you feel about the movie? Did you enjoy the movie?
I admired the ambition in that project. The special effects were great, and the ambition was good. But in the end, I did not like that film at all. I think it was a big, big, big disappointment. I wasn't that big of a Matrix fan to begin with, and I know that might sound blasphemous for some, because a lot of people have the Matrix on this pedestal that we can't touch it. But I think that's okay. I think nothing great. So Cloud Atlas comes, people are excited. I did not like it. I thought it was very tedious. It talked down to this audience. It kept saying, we're all connected as human beings. Everything matters in life. It's all connected, this and that. And it just got so tired and long. And it was just not a fun experience. So, I've only seen it once, and I never plan on seeing Cloud Atlas again. And when this movie, Jupiter Ascending, came out, or from the trailers, I said, oh, God, please let me not see that film. I don't think I can sit through another one of their films in a while, especially this looks very ambitious, too. I do like the cast, but I can't take Channing Tatum wearing the eyeliner, seriously.
And those ears, those elf ears.
Yeah, it looks like, what are they thinking? I'm excited. I like Mila Kunis. I'm like, that's cool, but yeah, it doesn't seem like this is my type of film.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Jesus. I wasn't against the film, but I will say I heard terrible things about this movie. I didn't think the trailer looked good. It's very rare that I've ever seen a trailer that makes a movie look unappealing. Mm-hmm. And this movie is one of them. I heard that people were walking out of the theater at a few of the festival screenings, and a lot of people were not very into what was going on. I know it was bumped back. It was supposed to come out in July 2014, and then it was actually shifted up, then back down.
Yeah.
And then they said they're going to delay it to 2015. It had a premiere at Sundance, and that is where I kind of heard that a lot of people were not happy. Granted, I don't think this is the movie necessarily for Sundance either, but the Wachowskis have fans. They have a following, and a major following at that. However,
big time.
However, it tends to all be because of The Matrix, and I'm not trying to downplay The Matrix because The Matrix is awesome, but it's just like we've kind of excused a lot more of their works because of those films. And every time I hear a Wachowski film coming out, I hear, well, they did The Matrix, man. And they just kind of hold on to that hope that they're going to create another Matrix, and I'm a little bit skeptic about that. This film was based on a book that was written in 1997. And it is a space opera, which is kind of making a comeback. The sci-fi film is making a huge comeback in cinema, which is awesome because the one thing I would love is a Western comeback. But sci-fi was something I also really appreciated, but the space opera is something that is kind of, I don't want to say I'm afraid it becomes too formulaic, but I want to keep, I want things to be a little bit less, I wasn't too impressed with Interstellar. We'll talk about this film. But either way, I hope they keep making sci-fis. I want them to keep these genres going that seemed kind of for a while a little bit dead. Not saying sci-fi ever died or disappeared, because it always kind of surfaced, but it seems like it is coming back and popular, especially the quote-unquote space opera. All right, so Jupiter Ascending. I was not a fan. I think that is the easiest way to put it. I could try to explain the plot to you. Probably won't make much sense. But basically, the Earth is a seeded planet. Like, we weren't born here. We were brought here by this aliens and their royalty. And they just kind of see who the only fit survive, and basically it kind of comes back to where Mila Kunis is Jupiter Jones, who's like a maid, right? Her name's Jupiter, and
what a name! She
finds out that she has the genetics from these aliens' royalty, and she is the heir, the heir to Earth. Mm-hmm. So she is going back to kind of face the other royalty members who all want Earth. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. I looked at the IMDb synopsis. I could read that to you, but to me, I don't know.
It doesn't help.
It doesn't really help. In a bright and colorful IMDb.com. In a bright and colorful future, a young, destitute caretaker gets targeted by a ruthless son of a powerful family that live on a planet in need of a new heir. So she travels with a genetically engineered warrior to the planet in order to stop his tyrant reign.
Oh my god. Oh.
So, yeah. I didn't understand this movie. Not saying I didn't understand the plot, because as complicated as it sounds, it's pretty basic. She is someone that she didn't know she was, kind of, because she's not really. She just has the kind of genes. And she goes and realizes, she's powerful and rich, but she doesn't really want that. And the problem was, my major issue with this film, besides being absolutely boring and just something I did not care about, was that the movie was a complete mess of being many, many different elements in one film. Now, that doesn't always make it a bad thing, but when it's done sloppy and careless and they don't form together as a whole, that's when you have a problem. In my opinion, Mila Kunis was not in this movie.
Oh, that's good. That's nice.
No. Hear me out. Mila Kunis was not in the film that I described. She was in a movie that could have been titled My Big Fat Russian Wedding, which is a comedy about her family that all live together and they're all maids, and I believe they're all Russian. I hope they're Russian. I know that she really is Russian, and I'm pretty sure that the characters are Russian. So if she's not Russian, Don't flip out on me, but I'm pretty sure she is. But it's about her whole family who wants her to find a man and why she's spending money. And she's just looking for that guy. And then in the movie, when she's, flirting with Channing Tatum, who's this as quote unquote genetically modified soldier, she cracks all the little wise jokes and little wisecracks. Like in one scene, Channing Tatum's like, in all honesty, for who you are, because she's quote unquote military, I'm more relatable to a dog than I am to you on your planet. And she goes, I like dogs. Like, it's that type of humor that you would find in a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
That is the movie she's in. Channing Tatum is auditioning for Marvel. He is auditioning for his part as Gambit. I'm not saying the man can't do it, because if there's one thing I respect it's Channing Tatum for, is the fact that he has tried everything. Comedy, serious, dance, sci-fi. Obviously, now I admire him for that. I don't want to ever shoot down an actor who really does try to kind of stretch bounds. And to be honest, he was just, he skated through the movie. Now, they're not really roller skates. They're gravity defining boots, but he just looks like he skates the whole movie. He does that little dash, he skates, and and he's the action guy and all the slow-mo. And Eddie Redmayne is Norman Bates from Psycho. He is a mother-loving psycho, and he's way over the top, and he's like that creepy kind of seductive feminist, like not feminist, that's not the right word, but feminine, psychopath, where he's always like trying to be very like a vampire, where he's very seductive and he talks all like, oh, don't you know what's going on here on Earth? Like that could have been a line of dialogue, and he just felt felt like they were in different movies. And you know what? I don't think it's the actor's faults. And to be honest, I kind of enjoyed Eddie Redmayne. I think I just really like him as an actor in this movie, but he was way over the top. Mila Kunis was in a romantic comedy. Channing Tatum was doing his best to kind of look cool and be this badass warrior. But like you said, with the ears of an elf and the eyeliner and the hairdo and the fact that he's he bit some guy and he's kind of like a dog. I just don't buy it. Yeah. I didn't understand what this movie was telling me. I didn't find it try to have a purpose. Just overall really disappointed. I thought the movie ended very terribly. It ended like it felt like the end of a Spider-Man movie with Spidey and Mary Jane. I do not understand the movie in the sense that I don't get what it was for, what it was supposed to do. And I wanted to, and this is a movie I would, people should say the special effects were incredible. To be honest, I didn't think they were that spectacular. I thought actually a few of the times they were quite video game-ish and cheesy. Mm-hmm. There were some great moments, but not enough moments to be like, oh, go see this movie. I really thought the movie was boring. It gave me a headache, and that's very rare. Like, I really did not go into a movie with a headache, and I ate beforehand, so it wasn't because I didn't eat or drink water. I just legitimately got a headache from the movie because of how annoyed I was with what was going on. I just think the story was a mess, and I think that they didn't know what kind of movie they wanted to make. So, and they have and there's terrible dialogue. And like I said, I don't blame the actors. I think it was just the filmmakers at this point. They didn't know what they wanted to do. It was all over the place. And the actors couldn't put it back together. And I was not a fan of Jupiter Ascending. I think Up There Mordecai is one of my least favorite films I've seen so far this year, even though I've only seen a handful. Just not a movie I'd ever want to revisit, or could not guess that this is from the same people who gave us The Matrix at all. Insanely mind-blowing. This is the people that did The Matrix. And I'm not saying they're bad filmmakers, because obviously they have a lot of talent. However, there's obviously been a struggle to kind of deliver, what did Orson Welles say, or what did someone say about Orson Welles? It's really tough when your first film is your best film. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what happens here. So,
yeah, that doesn't surprise me any, because I had the same feelings in Cloud Atlas.
So, yeah. And I know The Matrix wasn't their first film, but their earlier film.
Yeah, I think they
did Bound before that.
Bound, yeah, which Connor loves, our dear friend.
Yeah, and then they did like 4 Matrix movies, and then they did Speed Racer, which wasn't that great.
Oh,
I don't think anyone liked Speed Racer, and then Cloud Atlas. So, just saying. Moving forward, as our great friend James Shue likes to say, and a movie that it might be surprising that I've saved it for last, but don't worry, my review will speak all. And that is the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. Louis, are you a SpongeBob fan?
I can't say that I am. I definitely watched it growing up, but as SpongeBob took off and became like a cultural phenomenon, and like high schoolers, oh my god, it's my favorite show and all that. I was way past that. I was gone from SpongeBob. I watched SpongeBob before it was cool, and then as it got big and cool, I never went back and said, "Oh, let me revisit it." But yeah, I enjoyed it when I was little, no doubt about it. And I'm sure I would enjoy, a couple episodes here and there now as an adult.
Well, the show debuted back in 1999, so we were kind of at an older age when the show was a bit demographic for younger. But I did watch often, but I wouldn't say that I was an avid fan. However, my girlfriend, my amazing girlfriend, really showed me the world of SpongeBob. And I'm not saying I'm an avid fan, or nor is she, but she really kind of showed me the first 3 seasons. And the more I researched SpongeBob to kind of go into this review and talk about this movie, the more I realized that there is a fandom divide when it comes to SpongeBob, and that is after the 3rd or 4th season, there was a turning point. Well, before I get into that, just to kind of, if you, I know some old people listening to the podcast might not know how big SpongeBob really is, and Louis is not joking when he says cultural phenomenon. It was on TV Guide's greatest cartoon characters of all time, and it was even on Time's greatest television. Was it shows or cartoon? It was on Time's Guide for, I believe, greatest television shows. Also, so I mean that says a lot. It might be cartoons. I'm gonna have to double check that. But either way, that's a pretty heavy statement.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like around the mid 2000s, it just took off.
Yeah,
and many people, became enamored with it. And I am sure you can attest to this too. Even in high school, you would see kids wearing SpongeBob backpacks because those cartoon backpacks came back as fashionable.
So TV Guide ranked it 8th for the greatest TV cartoons of all time, and in 2007 Time placed it on the all-time 100 TV shows list. That's how popular this cartoon about a talking sponge became relevant in our society. Now, in 2004, the series created a movie called SpongeBob, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, which did not really get over with fans and critics as well. I mean, it was all right received. I believe it has a 68 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty positive. However, they claim that to be the turning point in SpongeBob great and witty and brilliant writing, and they said ever kind of after season 4 or 5-ish, that's when SpongeBob kind of began falling off. It was one of the most watched shows, and it has been decreasing ever so much. And as of right now, it is in a low point for the show. I believe it's on the 8th or 9th season. And that says something, and it was it was not difficult. Well, not very difficult, but it was quite difficult for the film to get made. This sequel that is nearly 11 years in the making, for a 2004 film. So I never saw the movie because I thought it looked kind of dumb. I watched it. I rented it on Amazon. I paid for it and watched it. And I wasn't too impressed. I thought it was okay. I thought it had really funny moments, but I felt that it was just an elongated episode, which is common for movies and stuff, movies based on television shows and things like that to kind of feel. And, when you are used to a format of being quick and to the point with a show, or especially a show that's 22 minutes and, without commercials, and to think that it's usually 2 episodes per episode or 2 skits per episode, it's harder to kind of digest. It's not always like that. So, I mean, SpongeBob does kind of has, but even 22 minutes to fit into 90 minutes is kind of hard to accept that longer version. But overall, I thought it was okay. So walking into the SpongeBob movie, I wasn't too sure, especially because, even Samantha said, I'm not too sure. It looks too new. The new episodes aren't that great. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I loved this movie. I had so much fun in the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. I couldn't believe it. Now, one thing that I absolutely love about it is that it doesn't try to be anything more than it is. It is, as the theme song says, it's nautical nonsense. It is silly and goofy and nothing to be taken seriously. In the fact that it's not trying to be something more. It's not Disney Pixar-ish. It doesn't try to have this enormous emotional arc. But to be taken seriously as a brilliant and funny out there comedy, absolutely. It's silly, it's goofy, and I had a smile ear to ear throughout the whole film. I was singing and laughing along with kids and adults alike. I think that the film is incredibly smart in offering a lot of different unique elements. One being the fact that this film is partially 2D and 3D CGI. Now, SpongeBob is normally in 2D animation, and the movie does advertise a lot of it to be 3D CGI. But what I loved about it is that 2/3 of the film, they are not on land or CGI. They are classic 2D animated characters. So, for that 1/3, though, it really, really works. It is awesome to see them as these huge, human-like characters with special powers as they kind of toy with the whole superhero phenomenon, as Mr. Krabs is like Iron Man and he's able to shoot his arms off in his robotic suit. Squidward is playing his instrument, and his death. I forget something. No, bad. Just playing it makes everyone cover their ears. I mean, just absolutely fun. They had a lot of great elements, and I think that mixing 2D animation and 3D CGI was really, really awesome and really fun. It was really great seeing them interact with live action sets. There was a really great set piece. Also, it was a huge homage to film in general. There were so many references to movies, especially movies from the 80s, that I was enjoying it and getting jokes that most kids weren't. So it was dead silent, and I got a joke, and maybe pretty much everyone there didn't, and I was laughing. For instance, the whole premise of this film is that the Plankton and SpongeBob must work together to find out where the Krabby Patty recipe disappears to. Literally just disappears in thin air. And because the Krabby Patty is not available, Bikini Bottom goes into complete apocalypse. And it looks just like how the world does in Mad Max 2. There also one point where Plankton goes into SpongeBob's brain to kind of see if he could get some info. And there are two popsicles that start off pretty far away from us, and they're holding each other's hand. They say, come play with us. Come play with us. And they keep getting closer and closer as if it was the twins from The Shining. Things like that made the film just even more enjoyable to me. I think that for people who stopped watching the show, or people who gave up on the show and thought that the 2004 film really was kind of the turning point, if they continue in the routes they're going right now, I'm all for it. Because I thought the movie was fun. I thought it was creative. I did think the movie was a bit, could be probably cut 15, 20 minutes. But even that, I still enjoyed myself. I never found myself being bored. But just in hindsight, the movie was about 130, 140. I think the original film was 125. I think it could have been cut down to that length. But I still enjoyed every moment of it. I thought that everything was just fresh and creative and used plenty of imagination. I love that they play with that modern superhero phenomenon, and they kind of turn into the Avengers. And I also really like that the movie did have a little heart. Now, it's not Disney Pixar's Up heart, but there's a character arc. And in most movies, we see a character go through a change. But it was such a wonderful arc as we see Plankton go from this, our selfish villain, who's not the worst villain in the world, because he's helped out Krabs and SpongeBob before, go into someone who could actually be a team. And it's great because it in the beginning, Plankton can't even pronounce the word team. And it's a gag that they reused throughout the film that I thought was absolutely hilarious. I just had a lot of fun. I was all for this movie. I think the 3D animation was great. I think the movie has its fair pairs of just totally being out there. There's a talking, rapping dolphin that is not 2D animated. It actually looks like a real toy that is involved, and he raps and he watches the universe, and they go through the universe and they go through all the parallels, and really out there stuff. But it was like a kid's version of a kid's appropriate version of what's the movie? This Is the End. Of just being creative and out there and different, but funny and silly. I think that's the best way to describe it, and I absolutely had a blast with it. I recommend people go and see it now.
Very nice. I think people would see it because, I think people like SpongeBob. About a year ago, I was on the bus, and this he must have been in his 20s. Came sitting down with his girlfriend on a seat next to me, and they were talking about SpongeBob, of all things. And so I think there's definitely an outlet for SpongeBob to be successful.
I think people will see it. I just hope that a lot of the fans who kind of given up or have left that show still give it a shot and go, because I totally loved it. And that's going to wrap up our episode this week, as we are running at an hour and 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you are the first time listener and you made it through this hour and 5 minutes of me and Louis bantering, please hit that subscribe button and get our episodes downloaded to your iPad, iTunes, your mobile device, whatever you listen to us on, weekly, automatically. You don't have to do anything. I appreciate all of our listeners. Make sure to go to our Facebook, facebook.com/chasingcinema, our Twitter @chasingcinema, and of course, youtube.com/chasingcinema to see all of our reviews, our video reviews, and little things that we do. We do Movie Clip Monday. We do DVD Release Tuesday, Throwback Thursday. We do a lot of fun stuff, and we're going to start doing giveaways and things like that. We're going to make some changes to the website up and coming, so look forward to that. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, I am Jacob Toronto, and I'm joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louis Corazolo.
And please continue chasing cinema.